Hello, my name is Dan Solis. I'm your host for Stories of Hope. Thank you for joining us once again. We are right now in the middle of a pandemic, a worldwide health crisis. Many people are living in fear, afraid of the illness, afraid of dying, afraid of other consequences of this disease. My guest today is a survivor. She has tested positive for the COVID-19, as well as her husband and niece. We're going to be talking about what gives her hope in the middle of this pandemic. Robin, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Let's open by just sharing the story of how you learned of your infection, that of your husband as well.
Well, if we start from the beginning, we would start from a Sabbath where we had the harvest party. That's where in my brain it starts.
So we're talking about an event that took place at your church.
Correct, yes.
A social event.
Correct.
Shortly after we became aware of
Correct.
the pandemic, even though at that point we knew very little.
Right, we didn't know anything about it. No one was, freaking out about it. They were just saying, well, we should be okay.
We're going to cancel school. We're going to do a few other things.
Right.
But,
It'll only be for a short amount of time.
Right, okay.
Mm-hmm. So the next day, which was a Sunday,
March 15th.
March 15th, I was not feeling terrific. I was tired, was what it was. I was tired. And
but you just had this big church event.
Yes.
You should feel tired, right?
Yeah.
No
and
big
so
deal.
I didn't think anything of it. And then a couple days later, and do you want to hear something good?
I want to hear anything good.
So let me tell you how good God is. My very pregnant at the time daughter-in-law, we were supposed to go see them that day. And I thought, well, if I'm feeling off, I really shouldn't go. So we canceled seeing my very pregnant daughter-in-law, my son, and our other granddaughter. Now,
but you didn't think you had COVID-19.
Oh no, I was just tired. There was nothing. I was what was called asymptomatic. So then my niece tested positive, I think it was the 22nd of April. And
April or March?
March, sorry, thank
okay.
you. Yes, this is a long saga. And then my husband decided, well, since she tested positive, maybe I should be tested positive. So he did. And he ended up testing positive. I can't remember when it was. It's, to be honest with you, a blur.
Now, he had been at this event as well.
Oh, yes, he had been at the event as well. And the 19th was his last day of work. He finished his work, and then he came home. He says, I don't feel good. And I says, well, that's okay. Why don't you just, do what you normally do? And he'll usually just go to bed, and in a couple days, he's fine. Well, he spiked a fever. He wasn't feeling good. And then after we found out about my niece, we were a little bit more concerned. And it ended up that I knew I'd probably had it since I was sleeping with the man and wanted to make sure that because of his temperature and stuff, he was doing okay. And he never had the hacking cough, by the way. Everyone talks about the hacking cough. He didn't have the hacking cough. And I came back April 1st having had the testing positive, and I knew I would. Come on, I live with the man. Everything changed that evening. Well, I should say early morning. My husband sounded weird. And that was actually the reason why I was sleeping with him, is so that I could tell when he sounded weird. And so I thought, and I didn't know what shortness of breath sounded like. You know, how do you explain it? And so I, for giggles and kicks, got up, and he had an oximeter. I can't think of how you say it.
I can't pronounce it.
It's the thing you stick on your finger like this, and then it'll show your heart rate, and then it'll show your oxygen level. And it was like 76. And I thought, oh my. And I knew he didn't want to go to the hospital, but I didn't know how low that was. I just figured it was okay and we could wait till later. So when he woke up later, later in the morning, I said, we need to take you to the hospital. We need to take you to ER. I don't want to go to ER. I feel fine. I just, you know, I'm fine.
Men don't need help.
No, men don't need help. And I said, yes, dear, men need help. And so I called up the county nurse and I told her what was going on. And she said, no, he needs to go to ER now. So I said, well, would you talk to Nathan? She said, yes. So I handed him the phone. Okay, when would you like to go to the hospital? And Nathan said, like noon. And she says, oh, no. I said, well, how about give me an hour and I'll have him there. And so she called the hospital, ER, letting them know that we would be on our way. And got him all done in. He didn't bring his phone with him. He didn't bring anything with him.
Because he's not staying. He's going to go
He's just
home
going
right
to
away.
ER because, you know, he's just a little bit short of breath and it's not a big deal.
And you badgered him into it. So.
It was all my fault.
Yeah, he's going to come right back home.
Yeah. And so from ER, he ended up in ICU. They told him later that I got him in at the right time. If we had waited later, it would have been very serious. And they probably, if we had gotten in later, it was really serious.
Now, let's be clear. What do you mean by, what did they mean by really serious?
He could have died. They could have intubated him. They could have put him on a respirator. Well, actually, they put him on a respirator first, and then they intubate him.
But the bottom line is he could have died.
Oh, yeah.
It was that serious.
Yeah. He was their first case. He was number one. They didn't have anybody else in ICU. And so they had to call around and find out what to do for him.
So he has a disease. Nobody knows what to do about the disease. So he's the guinea pig.
Oh, yeah. He was the guinea pig. They tested on him. And they tried 3 different drugs. They only tried them once of each. He was on 10 liters of oxygen, between 9 and 10. Most of the doctors and the physical therapists wanted him on to be, on the respirator and intubate him. His pulmonary specialist said, no, he's holding his own. He's not decreasing at this. Let's just wait and do whatever. And he was from Harborview. And he was had lots of friends. So he called all his friends and said, what do I do for this? And they said, well, we've tried this, this, and this. That's why they tried those things on him. And they only tried it once because the side effects were pretty bad. And
so if the disease doesn't get you, the side effects and the drugs will.
The side effects could get you because on one of them, it affects your heart. And so, yeah, and it was me calling him in the hospital. And I really appreciate his one doctor. I remember the first time I talked to him, and he was tired. He had had a long day. And I just said, just be honest with me. I said, then I know how to pray. And I'm praying for all of you, because What people don't understand are what these people are going through, and the routine that these doctors and these nurses need to go through in order to see someone in ICU, and he's in a special room. One of 2 rooms that they have. They have a third one, and I think they may have a few others. But it's a positive room so that when they open the door, the air is sucked in. The air doesn't go out, so that they spread the virus in throughout the hospital. And he's on his own system. So the air that he's breathing goes through a special vent that doesn't infect anyone else. Yeah, it was serious. It just, but this doctor, his pulmonologist and his main doctor when he was in ICU was honest with me, and I appreciated that. I wasn't always honest with other people because I wanted to be very careful how I told them about my husband's seriousness.
They were honest with you.
Yes.
They said it was serious.
Yes.
You understood correctly that this could mean
Death.
he would die.
Yes.
How did you deal with that?
God is so good. God is so good.
I don't hear many people thinking about death and God is so good in the
no,
same sentence.
God is so good.
How so?
You hear the words blessed assurance, right? Jesus is mine. Jesus is mine. I know my relationship with God. I know my relationship with Jesus. I know my relationship, my husband's relationship with Jesus. I have assurance that I will, and I would tell people, if and when I see my husband, because I had no assurance I would see him physically on this earth again. I had no assurance of that.
They don't let you into the hospital like normally.
Yep. And you hear of all the people who are dying. There were a lot of people who died from this disease. And
approaching 100,000 at this point.
Yep. But because of our relationship with God, because we know who our Redeemer is, because we know that God has promised us that if we believe in him, we will see him again in heaven. Not immediately, but we will see him. Now, that's how I got through it, is because I knew my husband knew Jesus. I knew my husband has a relationship with him. Did it make it easier? Yes and no. Yes, in the long run, okay? But I'm human. And I wanted to see my husband again.
Here.
I wanted that relationship. But I was okay with that if I didn't see my husband again. Would I be sad? Well, yes, I would be. But it's okay. God would see me through it. He has gone through so much these last years for me with his other accident and all the other stuff we've gone through. He has been holding my hand through this, and that's how we got through this.
Now, when you say he, you're not referring to your husband now.
No, this is God. God, my Father, my Papa. He has gotten me through this. And he's the only reason. And then people would remark, they'd say, well, we're praying for you. And I'd tell them, I know you're praying for me. Because I could say the things I could say. I could say that if and when. And I would be okay with that. And that's hard. But it's easy.
Very, very hard, I'm sure. We're going to have more of the story. And I want to thank you for sharing this much thus far. And I want to thank you for joining us. I want to invite you to consider finding the same source of hope
Amen.
that brought Robin through this incredible crisis And I want to invite you to join us again for future Stories of Hope at this same time so that you can hear more of this incredible story and how God gave this couple hope
Amen.
in the midst of an incredible storm.
Amen.
Once again, if you have an idea for a future story of hope, you may contact me at dansolistv@gmail.com. Thank you for joining us for this story of hope.